Hi, I'm Dave Christian. Over the last couple of weeks, we've heard a lot about fear and anxiety. Well, I want to talk with you about something different. We've had all of this extra time in our homes and with our families, and this has given opportunities for conflict. To help us with that, I want to read one of my favorite stories. The Zacks by Dr. Seuss. One day, making tracks in the prairie of Prax, came a north-going Zax and a south-going Zax. And it happened that both of them came to a place where they bumped. There they stood, foot to foot, face to face. "Look here now," the north-going Zax said. "I say, you are blocking my path. You are right in my way. I'm a north-going Zax, and I always go north. Get out of my way now, and let me go forth." "Who's in whose way?" snapped the south-going Zax. "I always go south, making south-going tracks. So you're in my way, and I ask you to move, and let me go south in my south-going groove." Then the north-going Zax puffed his chest up with pride. "I never," he said, "take a step to one side. And I'll prove to you that I won't change my ways if I have to keep standing here 59 days. "And I'll prove to you," yelled the south-going Zax, "that I can stand here in the prairie of Prax for 59 years, for I live by a rule that I learned as a boy back in south-going school. Never budge. That's my rule. Never budge in the least, not an inch to the west, not an inch to the east. I'll stay here not budging. I can, and I will, if it makes you and me and the whole world stand still." Well, of course, the world didn't stand still. The world grew. In a couple of years, the new highway came through, and they built it right over those two stubborn Zacs and left them there standing unbudged in their tracks. Have you come face to face with someone in your family? Chances are that's going to happen as you spend day after day together. So who should be the first to step aside? Obviously, there are matters of authority. If you're nose to nose with your parent, well, you should step aside. But what about a peer? Who should step aside? Well, Jesus says you should be the one to step aside. Paul put it this way: put others before yourselves. We are told in Philippians 2 to have the same attitude as Jesus. Jesus laid aside his divinity in order to rescue us. In verse 3, it says, "Be free from pride-filled opinions, for they will only harm your cherished unity. Don't allow self-promotion to hide in your hearts, but in authentic humility, put others first and view others as more important than yourselves. Abandon every display of selfishness. Possess a greater concern for what matters to others instead of your own interests. And consider the example that Jesus, the Anointed One, has set before us. Let his mindset become your motivation. He existed in the form of God, yet he gave no thought to seizing equality with God as his supreme prize. Instead, he emptied himself of his outward glory by reducing himself to the form of a lowly servant. He became human. He humbled himself and became vulnerable, choosing to be revealed as a man, and was obedient. He was a perfect example, even in his death, a criminal's death by crucifixion. If you back up a couple of verses in Philippians chapter 2, you find two sources of power for this kind of submission. One is the love of God. The other is friendship with the Holy Spirit. Consider also Ephesians 5:21. It says, "Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Submit to one another. The power needed to do this is significant. It's beyond our natural capacity to just submit to another person. It's found 3 verses earlier in Ephesians 5:18, where it says, "Be filled with the Spirit." This is the same Holy Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. Think about this. If that power is inside of you, and it is, if the Holy Spirit lives inside of you, then you have the power of the resurrection of Jesus Christ to help you to submit when you've come face to face with someone, even someone in your family. And you know, if you learn to submit to the people in your own home, which is the hardest, it's easy to submit to others. By the time we come out of our homes, after all of this is over, we will be experts at mutual submission. But what if you're by yourself in this time of social isolation? You know, for those who live alone, you may be stubbornly resisting change, maybe even resisting your own growth. You may be stubborn against the Lord. You know, you will be a lot happier if you learn to submit. No matter whether you're in a crowded family or you're by yourself. Once you step aside from your face-to-face conflict, maybe later in the day, you can have a heart-to-heart conversation. You can explain your perspective and express your needs. After you've humbled yourself, the other person may have the courage to do the same. In closing, let me say one more thing. To submit to one another, you have to let your guard down. You have to become vulnerable. You have to be honest. From the wisdom of the sitcom Schooled, I will quote, "Letting your guard down and admitting your insecurities can be scary. You often worry what people will think of you. But if you are open and honest with those who love you, you'll find that they offer more support than you could ever imagine. Then suddenly, the hardest things in life don't seem so scary because you've got a great partner by your side to help you get through it all, even through a pandemic." So what are you going to do the next time you come face to face with somebody in conflict?